My own son and his wife humiliated me just because I went to a Christmas party, mocked me like I was nothing. But they didn't know he is my adopted son. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I planned a revenge so cold, it shattered everything they thought they knew, including a secret I kept for 30 years. Before continue, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. That's free and only way to support us. Thank you. You ever have one of those moments where everything feels so normal, so peaceful, that you almost forget life has a way of slapping you in the face? That was me. Christmas Eve. 63 years old, wearing a red sweater with tiny bells sewn into the sleeves, like a walking holiday ornament. I didn't care how I looked, I felt happy. Genuinely, unapologetically happy. For the first time in a long time. The party wasn't even wild. My neighbor, sweet old Marie, threw it every year. Just a few families from the block, hot chocolate spiked with brandy, cheap string lights blinking like they were on life support, and Bing Crosby crooning from an old speaker. I hadn't planned to stay long. But something about the warmth, the laughter, the feeling of being seen, not as someone's burden but just as a person, kept me there until nearly 10 p.m. And honestly, I felt alive. I walked home humming Jingle Bell Rock, a little wobbly from the wine, cheeks flushed from laughter and cold. I even waved at the inflatable Santa on the next-door lawn like a giddy teenager. But the moment I stepped inside the house, all of that joy froze, dead in its tracks. There they were, my son, Evan, and his wife, Olivia, sitting on the couch like statues made of judgment and disappointment. Their eyes scanned me, bell sleeves, flushed face, and all. Olivia smirked. Evan didn't even try to hide the look of disapproval on his face. I blinked, waiting for someone to break the silence. Say something. Maybe a laugh? A light jab? Instead, Olivia muttered something under her breath. I didn't catch all of it, but I heard the word embarrassing. Evan looked straight at me and said I was too old to be out at night acting like a teenager. That I was drawing attention to our family in the neighborhood. I stood there, holding my coat, still halfway in the hallway, blinking like I'd just stepped into a different universe. What had I done? Danced too long to Mariah Carey? Took an extra cookie from the tray? I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just went to my room. Closed the door. Sat on the bed. The walls felt closer that night. The bed creaked louder. My bones heavier. And my heart? Well, it just ached. Not from their words, those I could handle, but from the fact that it was Evan who said them. The boy I raised. The boy I sacrificed everything for. The boy who wasn't even mine by blood. That secret had been locked away for decades. I never wanted him to feel less than. I never wanted him to question my love. But that night, that humiliation? It cracked something inside me. I stared at the ceiling for hours, the echo of their voices rolling in my head like thunder. Something shifted in me. Something permanent. They thought I was weak, laughable, disposable. They didn't know who they were dealing with. Not yet. But they would. You ever have one of those moments where everything feels so normal, so peaceful, that you almost forget life has a way of slapping you in the face? That was me. Christmas Eve. 63 years old, wearing a red sweater with tiny bells sewn into the sleeves, like a walking holiday ornament. I didn't care how I looked, I felt happy. Genuinely, unapologetically happy. For the first time in a long time. The party wasn't even wild. My neighbor, sweet old Marie, threw it every year. Just a few families from the block, hot chocolate spiked with brandy, cheap string lights blinking like they were on life support, and Bing Crosby crooning from an old speaker. I hadn't planned to stay long. But something about the warmth, the laughter, the feeling of being seen, not as someone's burden but just as a person, kept me there until nearly 10 p.m. And honestly, I felt alive. I walked home humming Jingle Bell Rock, a little wobbly from the wine, cheeks flushed from laughter and cold. I even waved at the inflatable Santa on the next-door lawn like a giddy teenager. But the moment I stepped inside the house, all of that joy froze, dead in its tracks. There they were, my son, Evan, and his wife, Olivia, sitting on the couch like statues made of judgment and disappointment. Their eyes scanned me, bell sleeves, flushed face, and all. Olivia smirked. Evan didn't even try to hide the look of disapproval on his face. I blinked, waiting for someone to break the silence. Say something. Maybe a laugh? A light jab? Instead, Olivia muttered something under her breath. I didn't catch all of it, but I heard the word embarrassing. Evan looked straight at me and said I was too old to be out at night acting like a teenager. That I was drawing attention to our family in the neighborhood. I stood there, holding my coat, still halfway in the hallway, blinking like I'd just stepped into a different universe. What had I done? Danced too long to Mariah Carey? Took an extra cookie from the tray? I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just went to my room. Closed the door. Sat on the bed. The walls felt closer that night. The bed creaked louder. My bones heavier. And my heart? Well, it just ached. Not from their words, those I could handle, but from the fact that it was Evan who said them. The boy I raised. The boy I sacrificed everything for. The boy who wasn't even mine by blood. That secret had been locked away for decades. I never wanted him to feel less than. I never wanted him to question my love. But that night, that humiliation? It cracked something inside me. I stared at the ceiling for hours, the echo of their voices rolling in my head like thunder. Something shifted in me. Something permanent. They thought I was weak. Laughable. Disposable. They didn't know who they were dealing with. Not yet. But they would. It started small, like a splinter, barely noticeable, just an itch. But splinters fester. They dig in, get under your skin, and eventually they make you bleed. That's what the days became. A series of little splinters. The morning after Christmas, Olivia made breakfast. Not for me, of course. Just for herself and Evan. I walked into the kitchen and saw 2 plates of pancakes drizzled with syrup, fresh fruit on the side. She glanced at me like I was a ghost, then walked away humming. I made toast. The next day, they rearranged the living room. Moved my recliner to the corner, my reading chair. They didn't ask. They didn't explain. Just did it. When I tried to move it back, Evan casually said, "We just thought it looked better that way." We, huh? Like they were one person now. A unit. And I was the odd shoe in the closet, still there, but never worn. It wasn't just furniture. It was routines, space, even conversation. They stopped telling me things. No more updates about work, family plans, nothing. I'd hear about weekend getaways from their friends or notice a packed suitcase on a Friday night without a word said to me. One evening, I heard them laughing in the dining room. Genuinely laughing. So I walked in, hoping, maybe, just maybe, they'd let me join. The laughter stopped. Olivia looked at me and gave this thin smile. Evan didn't even lift his head. Just kept scrolling on his phone. I stood there, frozen, like someone who walked into a room and forgot why. I mumbled something about checking the oven, even though it wasn't on. My own house, my own son. And I felt like an intruder. But the final straw? It came when Olivia invited guests over without telling me. 3 of her friends. The type that wear pearl earrings to brunch and speak in questions that are actually insults. "Oh, so you still live here?" one of them said. I laughed it off, but inside, I felt my blood simmer. Later that night, I heard Olivia in the hallway talking to one of them on the phone. She called me a clingy old woman with nothing better to do than hang around. She said I should have moved to a retirement home years ago. Evan didn't correct her. Didn't defend me. I went to my room, sat down, and stared at the blank wall. I used to hang family photos there, birthdays, vacations, Evan's graduation. But a few months back, Olivia had suggested we declutter the house. I agreed at the time. Thought maybe she was trying to modernize. Now I realized she was trying to erase me. Piece by piece. What they didn't know, though, was that I had my own memories. And something else. Leverage. You see, while they were busy treating me like an afterthought, I had been quietly gathering things. Watching. Listening. Planning. Because the woman they thought was just an old joke in a jingly sweater? She was the same woman who fought tooth and nail to keep a baby out of the system. Who balanced 2 jobs and college tuition. Who learned to fix leaky sinks with a butter knife and a YouTube video. I had been underestimated my whole life. But never by someone who owed me theirs. And certainly not by someone who didn't even know they were adopted. They thought they were writing me off. What they didn't know. I was writing the final chapter of a story they didn't even realize they were in. I stopped reacting. That was my first move. No more flinching when Olivia made her snide comment. No more frowning when Evan ignored me. I became still. Quiet. Pleasant, even. You want to see people unravel? Pretend everything is fine while plotting their downfall. It drives them absolutely mad. Silence became my armor. And behind that armor, I got to work. I started with the boxes in the attic. The ones labeled old paperwork, the ones nobody ever touched because they were Mom's junk. Inside were memories, yes, but also power. Evan's adoption papers, tucked inside a manila envelope. Official, notarized, stamp. His real name. His real mother. His real origin. I stared at that document longer than I should have. My hands trembled slightly as I held it, not because I doubted myself, but because I knew the weight it carried. I had promised myself I'd never use it. Never weaponize it. But people break promises when pushed too far. I made 3 copies. One for my lawyer, one for the safety deposit box, and one for the envelope labeled "Read this when you're done being a fool." That one? I'd hand over when the time was right. Then came the account. See, I'm no financial wizard, but I'm not clueless either. Over the years, I had stashed away a fair amount, little by little, birthday money I never spent, inheritance from my father, even a silent stake in a friend's small cafe that ended up booming during the pandemic. Evan had no idea. And now? I made sure that money had one rule: Evan and Olivia would never touch a cent. But I didn't stop there. I started observing. Every day, like clockwork, Olivia would leave her laptop open while she went to take her lavender-scented baths. Evan would forget to log out of his emails on the shared desktop. I wasn't snooping. I was researching. That's how I found the spreadsheet. Oh yes, the holy spreadsheet of betrayal. An Excel file titled Plan 2026. Inside, tabs with labeled budgets, lists of senior care facilities, potential homes for sale, and even one that compared how much Olivia's parents could contribute to help move the old woman out. I blinked, reread it. Then I laughed. Not a sad laugh. No, this was the kind of laugh that bubbles up from somewhere dark. Somewhere deep. They were planning to retire me. Not because I was ill. Not because I asked to be moved. But because I was an inconvenience. A shame. An eyesore in their perfect Instagram-worthy life. They thought I'd go quietly. Maybe even gratefully. They clearly hadn't read the same history books I did. Because the last time someone tried to push a woman out of her own kingdom, there was a revolution. And I was feeling revolutionary. So I started setting traps. Not obvious ones. Subtle. I moved things around in the house, just an inch or two off. Switched the spoons with the forks. Put almond milk in the regular milk carton. Olivia's favorite shampoo bottle? Refilled it with mayonnaise. Harmless, silly things. But enough to make them feel like they were losing control. And while they panicked over nonsense, I was building the real trap. Because you see, when people think you're weak, they never see you coming. And by the time they do, it's already too late. The best revenge isn't loud. It doesn't shout or slam doors. The best revenge is patient. It smiles. It listens. And it plans. I spent the next few weeks becoming exactly what they thought I was, a harmless, aging woman with nowhere to go and nothing to do. I started baking more. Watching soap operas. Asking Evan simple questions like how to restart the Wi-Fi. Olivia seemed smug about that one, like she had won some silent competition. Let them think they were winning. All the while, I was setting the stage for the final act. First thing I did? Found myself a lawyer. Not one of those TV commercial types with loud jackets and fake smiles. No, I went to Ms. Green. Sharp, quiet, deadly efficient. She didn't blink twice when I told her I wanted to revise my will and transfer my assets into a trust, one that excluded Evan entirely. She looked at me with a raised eyebrow and said, "Family trouble?" I just smiled and said, "Oh no, just planning ahead." I moved quickly after that. Sold some stocks, liquidated a few accounts, even transferred the deed to the house into a trust in my name only. It was all still mine, but unreachable by anyone else. Especially the spreadsheet lovers. Meanwhile, back at home, I played my part like an Oscar-winning actress. I smiled when Olivia talked about upgrading the bathroom. I nodded when Evan complained about work stress. I even let them believe I'd started looking into assisted living communities, like Olivia had so graciously suggested. She actually handed me a brochure one night at dinner. A literal glossy pamphlet, with pictures of seniors playing bingo like that was the peak of human joy. I took it with a thank you smile. Then later, I used it to line the bottom of the compost bin. Trash deserves to be with trash. But the real magic? That came when I planted a seed. During dinner one evening, I casually mentioned that I had a small inheritance coming from a relative overseas. I said it as if it slipped out mid-bite, then quickly changed the subject. Hook, line, sinker. The next morning, Olivia made me breakfast for the first time in years. 2 eggs, toast, coffee, just how I liked it. Evan suddenly remembered he hadn't taken me out in a while, and offered to go for a drive. Cute. They thought they could reel me back in. Put the brakes on their retirement plan, long enough to squeeze out some inheritance money. It was hilarious, and it was almost time. I booked a one-night stay at a boutique hotel across town. Left early in the morning without telling anyone. Just a short note that read, "Took a break. Be back tomorrow." I even added a postscript, "Check the oven. Something's in there." It was just a pot of water. Boiling. But I imagined Olivia screaming like it was a bomb. I spent that night eating room service in a fluffy robe, watching reruns of crime documentaries. Took notes. Imagined my own voice narrating the drama. When they pushed her too far. She pushed back harder. Dramatic? Maybe. But I was feeling theatrical. The next evening, I returned home. Evan was pacing. Olivia was scrolling on her phone, pretending not to care. "You didn't tell anyone where you went," she snapped. I just smiled and said, I needed to clear my head. And oh, it was clearer than ever. Because now everything was ready. The trust, the will, the paperwork, the secret. All I needed was the right moment to drop the bomb. I'd let them plan my exit. But they didn't realize. I was planning theirs. It was a Tuesday. Plain, unsuspecting, boring old Tuesday. The kind of day that gives no hint it's about to be burned into someone's memory for life. I woke up early, made French toast. The smell filled the house like I was some sweet little grandma. Olivia came downstairs in her silk robe, hair up in a messy bun that probably took 45 minutes to look that casual. Evan followed, grumbling about traffic and deadlines, pouring his coffee without looking up. They sat. They ate. And I waited. Halfway through their meal, I calmly walked back into the room, carrying a folder. It was thick, heavy, even. Not just in weight, but in truth. I placed it gently on the table between Evan's syrup-stained plate and Olivia's half-eaten avocado toast. Neither of them moved. "Go ahead," I said. "Take a look." Olivia looked suspicious. Evan reached out slowly and opened the folder. The first page? Adoption papers. Evan's name, his date of birth, and then mine, listed not as mother, but as legal guardian. A sealed file I had kept buried for decades. His hands stopped flipping. His eyes locked on the page. Then moved to me. He didn't say anything. Neither did Olivia. Next page, a letter. Typed. Addressed to Evan. I'd written it the week before at the hotel, while eating cheesecake and watching true crime. In that letter, I didn't beg. I didn't explain myself. I simply told him the truth. That I had loved him more than anyone in this world. That I had given up everything for him. That I kept the truth hidden so he would never feel less than. And now? Now he had made me feel less than. The room was silent. No breathing, no clock ticking, just that weighty silence that chokes the air. I gave them a few seconds before I really detonated the bomb. "I've sold the house." Evan blinked. Olivia's fork clattered to her plate. "I put it in a trust months ago. You've got 30 days to pack." They both started speaking at once. Confused. Loud. Panicked. Olivia stood up, pointing a finger, saying something about how I was being unreasonable. I ignored her. Turned to Evan and said, "You've spent years thinking I owed you something. That I was lucky to live here. But the truth is, you've been living in my house, sleeping in a bed I bought, under a roof I maintained, all while mocking the hand that fed you." He didn't speak. I could see the gears in his head grinding. Trying to figure out if this was real. Then I delivered the last blow. "All the assets you thought were yours? The inheritance? The investments?" I leaned in slightly and whispered, "You're not even in the will anymore." Olivia's face turned red, like a tomato that had just learned it wasn't being invited to the salad. Evan looked like someone had yanked the floor out from under him. And me? I felt free. Light, like a balloon finally cut from the string. I walked away from the table, cup of tea in hand, still wearing my soft robe. As I climbed the stairs to my room, I heard them still talking, low, frantic voices, arguing with each other now. Perfect. Let them fight. Let them panic. Because for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the old woman in the corner. I felt like the queen of the house. And my reign? Well, it had just begun. The next morning, the house felt different, quieter. Not the calm kind of quiet. No, this was tension-soaked silence. The kind you could slice with a butter knife. I sat at the kitchen table sipping my tea, flipping through the newspaper, while Olivia stomped around upstairs like a toddler who'd been told no for the first time in her life. Evan finally came down, eyes swollen, wearing the same wrinkled shirt from yesterday. He didn't even look at me, just stood in the kitchen like he forgot how life worked. "How could you do this?" he finally asked, voice cracked like a teenage boy again. I didn't answer right away. Took another sip of tea. Earl Grey. Delicious. Then I calmly said, "How could you?" He blinked like I'd slapped him. "I gave you everything, Evan. And you gave me embarrassment. Disrespect. You treated me like a stray dog, one you'd feed occasionally, but mostly just wanted out of the house." Olivia came downstairs mid-rant. Her voice shrill, face red. "You can't just kick us out. That house belongs to your family. To your son." "Oh," I said, raising an eyebrow. "I didn't realize you suddenly valued the idea of family." She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "You humiliated me. Over a Christmas party. A party. You made me feel like dirt because I danced, laughed, and wore bells on my sleeves. And Evan let it happen. Stood there, said nothing. Let you treat me like garbage in my own home." I could see Evan shrinking inside. He didn't have a comeback. Just guilt eating at him like termites in a hollow wall. I stood up slowly, feeling every bit of my 63 years, but stronger than ever. I built this home. Not just the walls but the memories, the safety, the love. And you both, I turned to Olivia, you both turned it into something ugly. She rolled her eyes and tried the classic line, "We thought we were helping you." I laughed. It wasn't a funny laugh. It was the laugh of a woman who had been underestimated for too long. "Oh please. You were helping yourselves. You wanted me gone so you could play house like some twisted royal couple, and I was the old maid cramping your style." Evan finally sat down, head in his hands. For a moment I saw the little boy in him again. The one who used to run to me when he scraped his knee. The one who cried when I missed his school play. But that boy? He grew into a man who forgot who stood in his corner all these years. And I was done fighting for a place in his life. "You have 27 days left," I said softly. "Use them wisely." They didn't respond. They just sat there. Silent. Broken. And for once I didn't feel sad about it. Because I had given them every chance. I had opened my heart, my home, my whole life. And all they gave me in return was a pamphlet for a retirement home and a plate of cold pancake. Well, now the kitchen was mine again. The quiet? That was mine too. And it had never sounded so sweet. 27 days. That's how long I gave them. I wrote the number in bold on a sticky note and slapped it right on the fridge. Olivia tried to take it down once. She said it was hostile. I stuck another one up the next day. Then another. Eventually they stopped trying. The countdown had begun. The first few days they walked on eggshells. Suddenly polite, suddenly generous. Olivia made dinner 2 nights in a row. Evan offered to mow the lawn. They even bought me a scarf, tag still on, no doubt a clearance item they picked up to score points. It was hilarious. But I wasn't moved. I'd spent too many years being fooled by temporary kindness. I knew their game now. And I wasn't playing anymore. They didn't know what to do with my silence. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I wasn't pleading for them to love me again. I was calm. Which terrified them more than any explosion ever could. A week in, the cracks started showing. Evan came home late one night, smelling like regret and whiskey. Olivia waited up for him, big mistake. I heard them arguing through the vents. Her voice sharp. His voice cracked. Something about throwing it all away. Something about, you said she'd never do it. Oh yes, my ears work just fine, thank you. Another few days passed and Olivia tried bargaining. We could all start over, she said one morning, handing me coffee like it was some kind of peace treaty. I took the cup, smiled, then dumped it into the sink. I like mine stronger, I said, without breaking eye contact. You could hear the ego shatter on the tiles. Evan stayed quiet. He was thinking, I could tell. Maybe remembering Christmas mornings, when I'd stay up all night wrapping his gifts just to see that smile. Or the time I sold my grandmother's ring to cover his first semester at college. Too late, kid. Too late. Halfway through the countdown, Olivia had a new plan. She called her parents, invited them over, probably hoped they'd guilt me into changing my mind. Maybe they thought seeing a real, traditional family would inspire some sort of motherly breakdown in me. They came over, all right. Dressed like they were attending a country club gala. Brought a pie and fake smiles. Olivia's mother called me, dear, 4 times in one sentence. Her father offered to talk things out man to man, as if I didn't just bulldoze their daughter's life plan. I nodded, smiled, then asked them how long it would take to find Evan and Olivia a new place to stay. They left before dessert. Olivia cried that night. She slammed her door so hard, a frame fell off the wall. I didn't flinch. I just picked it up, dusted it off, put it back. Because the house was mine again. Every wall, every floorboard, every memory. And they? They were just guests now. Guests on borrowed time. I had this photo on my nightstand. Old, faded, frame chipped at the corners. It was of Evan, 5 years old, missing 2 front teeth, wearing a Halloween cape made out of one of my old skirts. Every time I looked at that photo I used to feel warm. Nostalgic, like I did something right with my life. But after everything that had happened, that photo started to feel heavy. One evening, I found myself staring at it longer than usual. It hit me that this kid, this boy I raised, protected, loved with every cell in my body, he didn't exist anymore. He had grown into a man who forgot the sacrifices, the stories, the nights spent crying in the hallway while he battled a fever. He let some polished, pearl-wearing puppet of a wife treat me like clutter to be tossed out with the recycling. And I realized something. Evan didn't just forget where he came from. He never knew. And that was my fault. I had hidden the truth about his adoption for his sake. To protect him. To give him the illusion of normal. And in doing so, I robbed him of context. Of understanding. Of gratitude. So I decided to give him a little reminder. I pulled the photo out of its frame and slid something behind it, a copy of his birth certificate. His real one. The one with his biological mother's name. The one that didn't include me. I left it there. I didn't say a word. Let him find it when he packed his things. Let it hit him like a gust of cold wind. Meanwhile, life inside the house had taken a strange turn. They had stopped trying to please me. Now it was full-on Cold War. Olivia slammed cupboards for sport. Evan barely looked at me. I caught them whispering behind closed doors, probably trying to figure out if I was bluffing. Spoiler, I wasn't. I even scheduled a contractor to come in for renovations after they moved out. New paint, new tiles, a full reset. I wanted no trace of their existence left in this place. But I wasn't angry anymore. No, I was clear. Free. In fact, I'd started sleeping better. Eating better. Laughing more. Funny how standing up for yourself makes food taste better. I even reconnected with a few old friends. Went out for lunch. Took a Zumba class, nearly broke a hip, but I danced like no one was watching. One of the ladies asked me what brought me there, and I said, revenge. She laughed. I didn't. As the days ticked by, I watched Evan closely. He was unraveling. I'd hear him pacing late at night. Sometimes mumbling to himself. Once, I caught him staring at me from the hallway like he was seeing a ghost. Not the ghost of who I was, but the ghost of what he lost. Olivia, meanwhile, had taken to pretending I didn't exist. Which was fine. Because in 10 days, she'd be out of my house, out of my life, and out of my future. And Evan? Well, he was about to discover a truth even heavier than that birth certificate. A truth I'd been keeping for over 3 decades. The kind of truth that cuts deeper than betrayal. Because revenge isn't always about payback. Sometimes it's about revelation. And his was coming sooner than he could imagine. The final 3 days were oddly peaceful. Too peaceful. The kind of silence that stretches too far, like the air just before a thunderstorm. Olivia stopped slamming doors. Evan didn't argue anymore. They moved through the house like ghosts, packing slowly, avoiding my gaze, saying nothing. But I knew. They were scared. Not of me. Of the unknown. What would I do next? Would I throw out more surprises? Would I reveal something else? They had no idea the biggest shock hadn't even landed yet. It happened the night before they were supposed to leave. Evan knocked on my door. First time in years he'd done that. He came in without waiting for a response, eyes hollow. In his hand, the old photo frame, the one from my nightstand. He looked shaken. He didn't say anything at first. Just held out the photo, trembling. "I found this," he muttered. I nodded. He sat on the edge of the bed, hands in his lap, and whispered, "Is it true?" I didn't answer. I just looked at him. His eyes were pleading, begging for something, comfort, a lie, anything to make it easier. But I was done making it easy. "You were too," I finally said. "Your mother was my cousin. She died in a car crash. You had no one else." He looked down, blinking hard. Like if he stared long enough, the truth might disappear. "I raised you," I continued. "Fed you. Fought for you. Loved you like you were my own." His voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me?" I took a deep breath. "Because I didn't want you to grow up feeling like you didn't belong. Because I thought love was enough." Then I leaned in, softly, but firmly. "But now? I think you deserve to know. Especially after how you treated me. Like a stranger. Like a burden. Like I was something to be managed." He buried his face in his hands. Olivia didn't come looking for him. She never did when things got real. He stayed in my room for over an hour. Said nothing. Just sat there, quiet, guilt hanging off him like chains. I didn't console him. I'd done enough of that for a lifetime. The next day they left. Suitcases in hand, dignity in pieces. No goodbyes. No, "we'll stay in touch." Just silence. I watched from the porch as they pulled out of the driveway. Olivia in the passenger seat, sunglasses on, jaw clenched. Evan glanced back once. Just once. And then they were gone. The air in the house changed instantly. Like someone opened all the windows and let the past out. I walked back inside. Took off my sweater. Made a cup of tea. Then I laughed. Not a wicked laugh. Not even a triumphant one. Just a relieved, honest laugh from a woman who finally reclaimed her peace. I had raised a boy who turned into a man I didn't recognize. I gave him love, history, protection. He repaid me with shame and humiliation. But in the end, he left with nothing but confusion and regret. And I kept everything. The house. My freedom. And the truth. So the next time someone tells you revenge is petty, tell them this. Sometimes, revenge is just letting people face the truth they tried so hard to bury. Sometimes, revenge is silence. And sometimes, revenge jingles all the way home from a Christmas party. And lives happily ever after. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. That's free and only way to support us. Thank you.